Morning, welcome to Algebra 1, Lesson 38. We are talking about ratio today. All right, so if I have the numbers 3 and 4, and I write them like this with a fraction bar in between, we mostly talk about that as being a fraction, but we can also look at this as being a ratio, because I'm really comparing the numbers 3 and 4. So this ratio could be set as 3 to 4, for example. All right, so my ratio is 3 to 4. Look at all these numbers. 6 eighths, 300 over 400, 15 to 20. These all would reduce to 3/4. So they all talk about the same number. Even though you have different quantities in your numerator and denominator, they would all simplify to the same number. So they really have the same value. Therefore, they are equivalent ratios. Remember, anytime something is equal, it is an equivalent ratio. So, or anytime something is similar, it's equivalent, I should say. Okay, when you write two fractions or two ratios as being equal to each other, for example, 3/4 equals 15 over 20, we say that you have written a proportion because you're showing that even though you have different numbers in these ratios, they are equal, so they are proportionate. They are equal to each other in their value. Now there's something interesting to note about proportions. If I take my proportion and I cross multiply, so I multiply the bottom with the top of the other and the top of the one with the bottom of the other, so I multiply in the shape of an X, notice what I get as my products. So if I multiply 4 times 15, that gives me 60, very good. If I multiply 20 times 3, that gives me 60. I get the same number when I cross multiply in a proportion. I can use this information to solve if I'm missing part of a proportion. For example, 7/5 equals 91 over G. I'm looking for this G. I want to know what number that stands for. So the easiest way to solve for this number is to cross multiply and then solve for my variable. So I'm going to cross multiply by multiplying 7 times G, that's 7G, equals 5 times 91 is 455. Now to solve for my variable, I have to divide by 7 to get rid of 7. So G equals 65, because 455 divided by 7 would be 65 as my answer. So my proportion is 7 over 5 equals 91 over 65. Now as a quick mental check, notice that the top of the first fraction is bigger than the bottom. Check over here with your proportion. Is the top bigger than the bottom? If yes, that means that you're in the right direction. Your answer is probably correct. If no, then you're definitely wrong, because in your proportion, it's going to stay the same, that whatever value is bigger is going to be bigger in the second part of your proportion. So if it's bigger on top and smaller on bottom, then your second proportion will be the same. Your second ratio will be the same. If it's smaller on top and bigger on the bottom, then your second ratio will be the same with smaller on top and bigger on the bottom. So that's a quick mental check for you. Let's try another one. 4 over n equals 21 over 5. So I'm going to start by cross multiplying. n times 21 gives me 21m, which equals 4 times 5, which is 20. Now I divide both sides by 21. I can't simplify that any further, so I'm left with m equals 20 over 21 as my final answer. Multiply 20 over 21 times 21 and 5 times 4 just to check it and make sure that you get the same answer. All right, now that you know what you're doing with this, your book is going to ask you to solve word problems with proportions. Okay, so I will show you how to set those up with two examples. Here's the first example, 38.2 on page 148. The ratio of pigs to goats in the barnyard was 7 to 5. If there were 91 pigs, how many goats were there? Okay, so what I'm dealing with are pigs and goats. So I know that my proportion will be pigs over goats equals pigs over goats. My problem tells me that the ratio was 7 to 5. The first thing mentioned in my problem were the pigs. The first number is 7. So that means 7 pigs, 2 goats, 7 to 5. So 7 over 5 is my ratio. Then for my second ratio in my proportion, it says if there were 91 pigs, how many goats? Well, I know that pigs is on top, so I put the 91 in place of the P there on the top, and I'm solving for goats. So now I just cross multiply, and I have 7G, oops, I have a capital G there, so I'm going to keep it a capital G, equals 91 times 5, 455. This probably looks familiar to you. These are the same numbers from before. We divide by 7, so goats equals 65. Okay? Excuse me for 1 second. My phone has a message. There we go. Okay. So that's how you solve this problem. Let's try another example. This will be example 38.3 on the same page. In the same barnyard, the ratio of chickens to ducks was 9 to 4, and there were 108 chickens. How many ducks were there? So our problem tells us that we're dealing with a proportion of chickens to ducks. So we have chickens to ducks. It tells us that the ratio of chickens to ducks was 9 to 4. So chickens is mentioned first. The first number is 9. So 9 for chickens to 4 ducks equals. And we're told we have 108 chickens. So how many ducks would that be? Now I cross multiply to solve. So I have 9 times D is 9D equals 4 times 108, 32, carried by 3, okay, 432. Now I divide both sides by 9. Okay, let me make sure that I did that correctly. Yeah, okay. So D equals, and dividing both sides by 9, I get 48. I put 48 in place of D to check it. 9 times 48 equals 4 times 108. 432 equals 432. So my answer is D equals 48. Okay, go ahead and pause your video now. Give your practice a try. Okay, you should be back now from your practice. Letter A. You should have gotten M. Well, let me start you out with what proportion you should have. You should have 7 over 2 equals 714 over M. If you have 2 over 7 equals M over 714, it's the same thing. Then you should have cross multiplied and divided next and gotten M equals 204. And for letter B, you should have set it up that 5 over 9 equals C over 18,000. Cross multiplied and then divide, you should get 10,000 equals C. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions about this concept. I'm here for anything that you have, any dudas you might have. All right, I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye.